They were beautiful. They were powerful. And they were deadly. Not with swords, but with secrets. Not with armies, but with influence. These women didn't conquer cities, they conquered kings. They seduced, deceived, and destroyed. Their names are whispered through history like curses: Delilah, Jezebel, Herodias. Each played her part in unraveling men of God. Each changed the course of a kingdom. And each paid the price. This is not a tale of virtue. This is a tale of ambition, betrayal, and blood. This is the story of the 3 worst women in the Bible. But let's start with the first woman, Delilah, the one who brought Samson to his knees. He told her everything. Those 4 words would go down in history as the hinge on which a mighty man's fate swung and broke. It began with a whisper in the night. A voice like honey, thick and sweet, yet hiding the sting of a blade. Delilah was no ordinary woman. Men said her beauty could silence a room. But it wasn't just her face that turned heads, it was the fire in her eyes, the cunning in her smile, and the hunger she never bothered to hide. When she met Samson, Israel's wild and untamable judge, she didn't see a hero. She saw a challenge. And Delilah never walked away from those. Samson had become a legend across the land. A Nazarite from birth, he had been gifted by God with strength beyond imagining. He tore lions apart with his bare hands. He slaughtered armies with the jawbone of a donkey. And yet, with all that strength, he had one weakness: women. Delilah knew that, and so did the Philistines. One evening, just as the sun sank beneath the hills, casting long shadows over the valley of Sork, Delilah opened her door to find 3 cloaked men waiting. Philistine lords. Wealthy. Powerful. Deadly. "We want Samson," one of them said. Delilah leaned against the doorway, arms folded. "And why would I care what you want?" "Because we're prepared to pay you. 1,100 pieces of silver each." The man smiled, revealing a row of gold-capped teeth. "All you have to do is find out his secret, how he gets his strength." Delilah's eyes flicked to the heavy purse of silver in his hand. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned, letting her robe slip just enough to catch the torchlight. "Come back tomorrow night," she said softly. "I'll have what you're looking for." Samson was already under her spell. Delilah played the part perfectly. Soft words, gentle hands, a touch of danger in her laughter. He came to her night after night, believing himself safe in her arms. But Delilah was a lioness in silk, and he was prey too drunk on love to see the trap. One night, as they lay together, she asked him, "Tell me, Samson, what makes you so strong? What could someone do to tie you down and make you as weak as any other man?" He laughed. "If you bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, I'll become as weak as any man." She smiled, kissed him, and waited for him to fall asleep. The next morning, the Philistines hid in the room while Delilah bound him with bowstrings. "The Philistines are upon you, Samson," she cried. He snapped the cords like burnt thread. She pouted, tears rising in her eyes. "You lied to me. You made me look foolish." Night after night, she asked again. Each time, he gave her a false answer. Each time, she tested him and failed. But Delilah wasn't discouraged. No, failure only sharpened her edge. She pressed him harder. "If you really loved me," she whispered, tracing his cheek with her finger, "you'd trust me. Or am I just another woman to you?" Samson hesitated. He had told no one his secret, not even his parents. But Delilah's voice was like water on stone, slowly wearing him down. Day after day, her words chipped away at his resolve until there was nothing left. One evening, with his head in her lap and her fingers running through his thick, dark hair, Samson let out a long sigh. "No razor has ever touched my head," he said. "I was dedicated to God before I was born. If my hair is cut, my strength will leave me. I'll become as weak as any man." Delilah's heart skipped. This wasn't a riddle. This wasn't a game. This was the truth. She soothed him to sleep with the same hands that would betray him. That night, as he snored softly, Delilah called in a servant with a razor. One by one, his 7 braids fell to the floor. And with each lock that was cut, the Spirit of God pulled farther away from him. She looked at the sleeping man with cold satisfaction. "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." He leapt up, but something was wrong. His arms felt like lead. His legs trembled. He reached for strength that wasn't there. The Philistines rushed in, beat him down, and gouged out his eyes. Delilah watched from the corner as Samson screamed, not just from pain, but from the realization that his strength was gone. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She had what she wanted: silver. No one knows what happened to Delilah after that. Some say she lived like a queen on her blood money. Others believe she died in obscurity, abandoned by the very men she helped. But her name would live on, not in songs of praise, but in cautionary whispers. Delilah, the woman who sold a man's soul for silver. A siren cloaked in desire. A traitor. But maybe, just maybe, she didn't start that way. Some imagine Delilah as wicked from the womb, a woman born to ruin men. But others wonder if she was once just a girl, hungry and poor, in a world where power belonged to men and beauty was a woman's only weapon. Perhaps she learned early that love was a luxury she couldn't afford, that trust was a story told to fools. So when the Philistines came with silver in hand, maybe she didn't see betrayal, she saw survival. But whether she was a cold-hearted temptress or a desperate survivor, the damage she did cannot be undone. One man lost his strength. A nation lost its champion. And the world gained a name that would forever be associated with betrayal. Centuries later, her name still echoes. Not in temples, but in tales of warning. Beware the Delilahs. They smile as they cut. They kiss as they kill. They ask, "What is your secret?" But they never plan to keep it safe. For in the arms of a woman like Delilah, even the strongest man can fall. Not by sword, not by spear, but by a whisper, a smile, and a snip of the shears. And when he falls, he will not rise again. But this is just the beginning, because the next name on our list is Jezebel, the painted queen. She painted her eyes, adorned her head, and looked out the window. The sky was red the day Jezebel died, as if the heavens themselves were smeared with the blood of her sins. Before she became a queen, Jezebel was a princess, a daughter of Ethbaal, king of Sidon, high priest of Baal. Power ran in her blood, and fire burned in her bones. She was raised in a palace of idols, among incense, daggers, and politics, where love was weakness and cruelty was coin. She was not raised to be meek. She was not raised to follow. So when she married Ahab, king of Israel, Jezebel didn't come to bow, she came to reign. Ahab, for all his royal bearing, was weak. Handsome, yes. Charming, yes. But spineless. Jezebel saw it immediately. Where he wavered, she would command. Where he hesitated, she would strike. She wasn't content to sit beside the throne. No, Jezebel sat upon it in spirit, and no man, no prophet, no priest, no god, could remove her. She brought her gods with her into Israel. Baal, the storm god, and Asherah, his goddess. She built temples and altars, high places where fire and blood mingled on the stones. And the people followed. Why worship an invisible god when Baal gave rain? Why follow old commandments when Jezebel's feasts overflowed with wine and flesh? But not everyone bowed. A man named Elijah, prophet of the Lord, stood against her. And that made him a threat. Jezebel didn't take threats lightly. She hunted prophets like animals. Men of God fled to caves and deserts to escape her wrath. She filled the court with her own priests, slick-tongued, smooth-skinned flatterers who told her what she wanted to hear and bowed at her feet. But Elijah remained a thorn. So he challenged her priests. A contest, her gods versus his God, on Mount Carmel. 450 prophets of Baal danced, screamed, and cut themselves, begging fire to fall from heaven. Nothing happened. Then Elijah stepped forward. With a single prayer, fire fell. It consumed the altar, the stones, the water in the trench, and the hearts of the people. Jezebel's priests died that day, by Elijah's hand. When the news reached her, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply sent a message to Elijah. By this time tomorrow, I will make your life like one of them. Elijah fled. Years passed. Droughts came. Wars raged. But Jezebel endured. She ruled beside Ahab like a serpent wrapped around his throne, elegant, dangerous, and coiled to strike. But her true darkness was revealed in the story of a vineyard. A man named Naboth owned a small piece of land beside the palace. Ahab wanted it. Naboth refused. "The Lord forbid that I should give you my ancestors' inheritance." Ahab sulked like a child. Jezebel found him lying in bed, face turned to the wall. "Why are you weeping?" she asked. "I want Naboth's vineyard," he said, "but he won't give it to me." Jezebel's eyes narrowed. Is this how a king behaves? And just like that, she wrote letters in Ahab's name. She staged a false trial. She hired liars to accuse Naboth of blasphemy. They stoned him to death. "Go take your vineyard," she told Ahab. Blood stained the soil. And heaven took notice. Elijah returned with a prophecy. Dogs will devour Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. She laughed in his face. But prophecy has patience. It waited, like a noose in the rafters. Years later, Ahab was dead, struck down in battle. His blood had been licked by dogs, just as Elijah said. Now, his son Joram reigned, but Jezebel still held court, older now, but no less proud. Enter Jehu, a warrior anointed to cleanse the land. He marched to Jezreel, sword in hand, fire in his eyes. Joram rode out to meet him. "Is it peace, Jehu?" Jehu replied, "How can there be peace, so long as the whoredoms and witchcrafts of your mother Jezebel abound?" Joram turned to flee, but Jehu's arrow found his heart. Now Jezebel was alone. She heard the hoofbeats before she saw him. Jehu, riding fast, bringing death. So she painted her eyes, lined them with kohl, adorned her hair, dressed herself in royal splendor, and she stood in the window. When Jehu arrived, she looked down at him and sneered. "Have you come in peace, Zimri, you murderer of your master?" But Jehu didn't argue. He looked up and shouted, "Who is on my side?" 2 eunuchs appeared behind her. "Throw her down," Jehu commanded. And they did. She fell from the window with a scream swallowed by the wind. Her body struck the stones. Her blood splattered the wall and the horses. They trampled her beneath their hooves. Jehu went inside, ate, drank, then said, "Go, bury her. She was a king's daughter." But when they went out to collect her body, they found only her skull, her hands, and her feet. The dogs had eaten the rest. Just as the prophet had said. Jezebel, the queen who ruled with painted eyes and a ruthless heart, died in disgrace. But her name lived on. She became a symbol of seduction and idolatry, a warning carved into history. In the final book of the Bible, the name Jezebel reappears, not as a woman, but as a spirit, a corrupter, a deceiver, one who leads people away from truth into ruin. But like Delilah, her story raises questions. Was Jezebel pure evil? Or was she a product of her world, a foreign queen forced to survive in a hostile land, who used the tools she had, beauty, intellect, power? She refused to be silent, refused to submit. She fought like a lioness. She ruled like a storm. And in the end, she died like a villain. But to some, perhaps she was not a villain. Perhaps she was simply a woman who dared to challenge men and gods, and paid the price. In the silence after her death, the wind whispered her name through the ruined halls of the palace. The scent of her perfume lingered on the stones, mixing with blood and dust. Jezebel, queen, murderer, idolater, warrior. Her throne is dust now. Her gods are forgotten. Her bones, devoured. But her story, still terrifying, still told, and still true. But here is where it gets interesting, because the last name on our list is Herodias, the woman who danced with death. I want the head of John the Baptist, on a platter. The air was thick with incense, wine, and secrets. Herod's birthday feast had begun, but it would not end in celebration. It would end in blood. Herodias was a woman who always got what she wanted. Born into a tangle of political power and royal scandal, she had learned early how to bend men's will without raising her voice. She was beautiful, yes, but her true weapon was ambition, sharp and precise as a blade. She had married her uncle, Herod Philip, and lived a life of luxury in Rome. But it wasn't enough. When she laid eyes on his brother, Herod Antipas, Tetrarch of Galilee, her heart didn't beat with love. It throbbed with opportunity. He had power, influence, a throne. So she divorced her husband and married Antipas, even though both of them knew it was unlawful under Jewish law. He was her uncle, her former husband's brother. Their union was a scandal, an offense not just to tradition, but to God. Only one man dared to say it aloud: John the Baptist. John was no ordinary man. He was wild, clothed in camel's hair, living in the wilderness, preaching repentance and fire. Crowds gathered to hear him speak, to be baptized in the Jordan, to feel the weight of their sins washed away. But John wasn't afraid of kings. When he heard of Herodias' marriage, he thundered, "It is not lawful for you to have her." He said it again and again, publicly, boldly. Herodias' name passed through his lips like poison called out to be cleansed. She was enraged. She didn't just want him silenced, she wanted him dead. But Herod Antipas hesitated. He respected John, feared him, even. The man had a strange power, an undeniable presence. Herod would listen to him speak, pacing in the dark, disturbed by his words but unable to look away. So he arrested John, locked him in a dungeon beneath the palace. But he would not kill him. Not yet. Herodias waited, watching, smiling, plotting. Then came Herod's birthday, a night of feasting, of drunken laughter, of pride and preening and performances. And into the candlelit hall stepped her daughter, Salome. She was young, beautiful, and trained well. Salome danced. She danced not like a child, but like a storm, twisting, turning, pulling every eye to her. Even Herod watched, spellbound, desire burning behind his drunken gaze. When she finished, applause shook the walls. Herod stood, flushed with pleasure. "Ask me for anything," he slurred. "Anything you want. I swear, by my kingdom, by my throne, by my life, whatever you ask, I will give it to you. Even half my kingdom." The room fell silent. Salome didn't answer. She stepped lightly from the hall, trailing silk and smoke, and went to her mother. "What should I ask for?" Herodias leaned in, her voice a dagger wrapped in velvet. "The head of John the Baptist." Salome returned, a shadow of innocence, and spoke clearly. "I want the head of John the Baptist, on a platter." Herod froze. He had not expected this. He was disturbed, grieved. But his pride was louder than his conscience. He had sworn an oath, and the eyes of the court were on him. He gave the order. Moments later, a guard descended into the dark. John, the wild prophet, stood silent in his cell, eyes closed in prayer. The blade flashed. The head fell. And soon after, a silver platter was brought to the feast. Blood pooled on its surface. The prophet's lifeless eyes stared into the abyss of human cruelty. Salome carried it to her mother. And Herodias, satisfied at last, looked into the face of the man who dared to defy her, and smiled. History would not be kind to Herodias. She is remembered not just as a manipulator, but as a murderer. A woman who used her daughter as a pawn. A woman who spilled the blood of a prophet to silence his truth. But behind the mask of wickedness, there may have been something more. Perhaps she feared John not because of his words, but because of what they revealed. Perhaps she heard in his voice the echoes of a law she had buried, a God she had defied, a future she could not control. And rather than face that truth, she destroyed the one who spoke it. Years later, after Herod's downfall, the two were exiled, banished from power, their throne taken, their wealth gone. They died in obscurity. No statues, no legacy, just a memory soaked in blood. But Herodias' story endures, not because she was powerful, but because she was dangerous. A reminder that evil doesn't always wear armor or carry swords. Sometimes, it dances in silk, whispers in banquet halls, smiles behind veils. And sometimes, The deadliest voice in the room is the one you never hear, because it speaks through others. Herodias. The queen behind the curtain. The hand behind the head. The whisper behind the scream. She didn't raise the knife. She didn't press the blade. But her words cut deeper than any sword. She is the woman who danced with death, and made sure death answered. From the stories of Delilah, Jezebel, and Herodias, we learn several deep and haunting lessons about human nature, power, and consequences. Here are the key takeaways. 1. Power can corrupt, especially when unchecked. Each woman held great influence: Delilah over Samson, Jezebel over Israel's king, Herodias over her daughter and husband. But instead of using it for good, they used it for personal gain, revenge, and destruction. Power without accountability is dangerous. 2. Seduction and manipulation are powerful weapons. These stories show that influence doesn't always come through force. It often comes through charm, persuasion, and emotional control. Delilah didn't fight Samson, she simply wore him down. Herodias didn't kill John herself, she orchestrated it with a dance and a whisper. 3. Truth makes enemies. Each story involves a man who stood for righteousness: Samson with his calling, Elijah against Jezebel, John the Baptist against Herodias. And in every case, those who spoke the truth paid a price. It reminds us that speaking truth to power often invites danger, but silence can be even deadlier. 4. Sin may be sweet for a season, but justice comes. Delilah gained silver, Jezebel gained a throne, Herodias got her revenge. But all three met bitter ends: ruin, disgrace, and exile. The Bible repeatedly teaches that evil may seem to win temporarily, but justice, divine justice, is never far behind. 5. Influence without virtue leads to destruction. These women had strength, intelligence, beauty, and status, but lacked moral grounding. Without virtue to guide their actions, their gifts became tools of devastation. 6. The people you surround yourself with shape your fate. Samson ignored warning signs. Ahab listened to Jezebel's schemes. Herod feared losing face more than doing what was right. The wrong voices in your life can lead you to ruin. 7. Even the darkest stories are warnings, not just of what others did, but what we might become. These women aren't just villains. They are mirrors. They show what pride, bitterness, jealousy, and lust for control can do to anyone, man or woman, who lets their heart grow hard. Make sure to subscribe for more deep stories like these. Thank you.